Okay, so now I'm back. It was just taking entirely too long. I thought that I could talk and do my makeup at the same time, but it was just too much concentration on my makeup was distracting me from what I was trying to say. So we were talking about complex post-traumatic stress disorder and post-traumatic stress disorder and just the difference between the two. The difference between the two, the point of my video is complex is when you're in a situation as a child, you're imprisoned. You could also use maybe somebody that went to prison. Let's say somebody was in prison for, I don't know how long it takes to be traumatized by it, but you know, a day in prison for me would be traumatic. But let's say somebody was in prison for 10 years and they are 100% dependent upon the guards and the staff to house them, to feed them, to tell them how many times they can go to the bathroom, when they need to take a shower, basically that type of structure. So they can't leave. They're in prison. So they're imprisoned. So when you're a child and you're a small child and you're dependent upon your parents, your mother, your father, whatever, both parents, single parent, whoever, you're depending on them for housing, for food, for safety, for protection, and you're being abused mentally or physically by that parent, and you're basically a prisoner because you can't leave. You can't leave. You could run away from home, but most kids are so terrified of their parent that the consequences of running away from home might be really, really, really bad. Even though you're in a bad situation, they may find you, and that fear, I think, is what always kept me from fleeing, or from leaving and not coming back. I don't know why I went back all the times. Because my dad did put me out of the house multiple times. Why did I go back when he said I could go back? I don't know. All I know was the abuse was happening. I was mentally and physically abused. He told me that all any man is ever going to want me for in my life is just for sex, and that's it. As early as age 10, I want to say 9 or 10 to be fair, he said I was a slut, I was a whore, I was a tramp. When I was in junior high, if I came home late from school, I was accused of having sex somewhere with some boy. I couldn't go to any sports events, any functions at school. Although I was in a few talent shows because I've always loved music and I've always loved to dance, and those were really the only good things that really I ever got to do as a child growing up. And in school, grade school, I was in a couple talent shows, dancing, and junior high dancing. And then I was so distracted by all the abuse and all the trauma and all the stuff that was going on at home, and not just the abuse on me, but my mom and dad fighting, and she was also a victim. And I don't ever want to come off as throwing my mom under the bus, because she was there, the abuse happened, she was afraid of him. I was a child, so I can only imagine that she was afraid of him as an adult, knowing what the possibilities were for her. When my kids were growing up, and I was, a parent with depression, and I was a parent with mood disorders and dysfunction because of my childhood, and the bad relationships that I was in, and maybe one of those parents my kids liked, and really took to, and then I got out of the relationship, so it made me seem like I took them away from a good situation, or because they didn't know the details on the adult level, which they shouldn't have. But one particular situation, my son was really attached to the other person and really close, and because I left the situation, it made it seem like mom was the bad person and mom ended our good situation, and now we're in this other situation with this person that I don't like. And it made it seem like I took them out of something, or took them away, or took somebody away from them who was good for them. In actuality, they weren't. In actuality, I was being abused by that person and they just didn't know. So I can say for myself as a child, I didn't know the adult aspects. I didn't know the details. I did know what I saw. What I saw was enough. I did know that my dad was mentally, physically abusive towards me. I didn't see a lot with my mom. I did see a couple occasions where he was abusive. I heard it every day. My brothers and my sister was gone because she ran away and never came back, which was the smartest thing. And I wished I would have. But, excuse me, would I be sitting here today telling bits and pieces of my story had I ran away and not been through what I went through with my father? That's where the complex post-traumatic stress comes in, as opposed to post-traumatic stress disorder. Post-traumatic stress disorder is when something traumatic happens, maybe one event that happens and it traumatizes you. Maybe you're in a bad accident. Maybe your spouse beats you up and almost kills you. Maybe you know, had a gun pulled on you. Maybe you got, you know, something traumatized you to the degree where you still suffer from triggers and smells and sounds, and you know, you can't really function very well, and you have social anxiety or depression. Complex post-traumatic stress works the same way, except you're imprisoned. Your trauma is a continued trauma. Your trauma is something that is extended long periods of time. So that leads to distrust, that leads to vulnerability, that leads to being prey to a narcissist or an abuser. I think that every abuser, and I could be wrong, and I'm still doing research and still learning, but I think that every abuser is a narcissist in some way, shape, or form, because an abuser likes control. They like to have control. They want to know that, you know, they're up here, you're down there, and they're the boss and you're not, and they want to make you feel inferior, and they do make you feel that way. And because I was abused at such a young age for such a long extended period, I was a person who had, if you've heard of Stockholm Syndrome, it's where you begin to identify with your abuser or your abductor or whatever, and you start to think that it's normal, and you start to sympathize with them, and you don't want to upset them, so you do anything and everything to please that person, and you even love that person. You know, you still have a love for that person, and in my case it was my dad, and in some weird sense, I loved him because he was my dad. He was who instinctively I knew was my protector, and I needed protection from him. I just didn't know it. I know it now. I knew it later on in life, that the monster that I needed my dad to protect me from was in fact the monster. I still loved my dad. I forgave my dad. He died of a drug overdose when I was 30 and he was 55. And it's sad because he died the exact same way he lived. He was a functioning drug addict, alcoholic, narcissist, sociopath. But my dad was also abused by my grandfather. So it's just a whole line of abuse and, you know, generational stuff that I would like to think that I've cut that cord and I've stopped that. My kids are all struggle with certain things in different ways in their lives, and you know, I'm the butt of it. I'm to blame for a lot of it. But I think that once they really, you know, sit down, and I don't think that I'm like innocent in any way. Like I think that I did the best job that I could do with the tools that I had, and actually with the tools that I didn't have. I fumbled through parenting. There's no book on parenting, but I really, to my credit and to my defense, I really felt that I was doing the best job that I could do with them, with what I had. It's a miracle that I was able to work for 36 years of my life without getting fired, without, I mean, I got written up multiple times because of my depression, because I'd have to call in sick because I just couldn't leave the house and I couldn't face people. I had a job where I worked with clients and I loved it. I loved my clients. I loved interacting with people. I'm a people person, strangely enough, that I got into trouble at work because I missed too much work. I would come in late all the time because I just was not a morning person, and half the time I just didn't even want to wake up. I never wanted to really die, but I just didn't want to wake up sometimes. And I think people who kill themselves don't really want to die. They just want the pain to end. And I think it's just a big shitty ass thing that happens to people, and it sucks because people are so sick in their minds. And I mean, I just wonder who was the first person who started the abuse, like down the family line or up the family tree or whatever. Like, who was the very first person who started the cycle of abuse? You know, was it my great grandfather? Was it my great great grandfather? Like, where did that all come in? Why? What triggered it? Why did it happen? There's so much anxiety these days. There's so much post-traumatic stress. But that's the difference between complex post-traumatic stress disorder and post-traumatic stress disorder. Is complex, it's just an extended time, and you're at the mercy of your abuser. And again, I said it can happen in marriages and relationships, and you just have a little bit more freedom. You know what you can do. You can hop in your car and you can leave. Or if you can't leave and move out because you have nowhere to go, I mean, I think there's some place that we can all go, even if we just go park our car and sit at the park for a couple hours, which I've done multiple times. I've had to remove myself from situations because, again, post-traumatic stress. I can't be in, what happens with me is, if somebody's being aggressive, if somebody's getting in my space, getting too close to me, in my face or to my person, to my body, or if I'm saying leave me alone, like, please leave me alone, you go to your corner, I'll go to my corner, and they're not respecting that and they're coming towards me, they can say, oh, come on, I'm not gonna hurt you, like, you're just being dramatic. No, I really need you to stay this far away from me. If I ask you to leave and give me my space, it's because I desperately need it, and it's a life threatening situation for me. I feel I'm in danger. Am I in danger? Maybe not. Okay, that's where fight, flight, or freeze comes in. And there's so many triggers to that, guys. This is such a huge topic, and such a huge epidemic, that if you notice now, all you hear about is anxiety. All you hear about is, like, people are struggling with anxiety. They're on medications. I've been to the emergency room, I can't tell you how many times, for panic attacks. I've woken up out of a dead sleep with a full-blown panic attack. That is not normal. So like I said, I've been in and out of therapy for 30 years. Okay, I'm still a work in progress. I'll always be a work in progress to the day that I leave this earth. We will all be a work in progress till the day we leave this earth. I don't ever believe, and be wary of anybody who tells you, oh, I've been delivered and set free. You know, we work through things, we get past things, but delivered and set free is the day that we go home to heaven, or to whatever you believe is out there at the end. That's delivered and set free. Okay, we're still in these fleshly bodies. We're still going to hurt. We're still going to have, traumas. We're still going to have, sicknesses and arguments and disagreements and dysfunction. And just, as long as we're on this earth, we are still going to have troubles and trials. And we need each other. And so, because we need each other, it makes it really, really hard for somebody who has post-traumatic stress. It makes it really, really hard for somebody who struggles with depression, anxiety. If you're an empath, if you're a survivor of abuse, if you're currently in an abusive situation, It makes it so difficult for me, and with everybody and anybody else who suffers from complex post-traumatic stress disorder. You have a huge problem with connecting with people. You want to isolate yourself. It's a good and a bad thing. By protecting ourselves and setting boundaries, we're also closing out good energies and good things. But again, I'm very aware. I check things out. I listen to the people's voices. I see their mannerisms. I can tell if something's off with somebody, and I'll be damned if I'm going to be the butt or the victim of somebody else's rage or somebody else's issues. Like, we all have our own stuff. You deal with your stuff how you need to. I'm going to deal with my stuff like I've been doing for 30 years. But I can honestly tell you that this past 3-4 years, I have been working on me in a spiritual sense. And this past year, I have come so far from this past year than I was 2 years ago. And this past year, I have been on a daily, unless I'm really sick. Even then, I'll spend at least 30 minutes out of 24 hours of working on me, researching, studying, reading, listening to videos, just trying to heal myself is what I'm trying to do. I'm really trying to heal myself. I am determined to get as close to being healed, and I don't think I'll ever be completely healed, but I want to share what I have. I want to share what I've been through. I want to share what works for me to get through a episode, a flare up, it's really hard, you guys. It's really hard for me to connect with people and to have a support system. My psychiatrist says, well, who was your support? Like, what support system do you have? Well, I really don't have a support system. Like, I literally don't have a support system. I've had issues with pretty much multiple people in my family, strained relationships. And again, it could be me, but part of it is me. Okay, obviously, if there's a relationship, it's two people. And if there's a strained relationship, it's two people. And if there's confrontation, it's two people. So I can just say that my support system is minimal, and she wants me to do groups again, and I don't want to regress. I don't want to go backwards. And I want to move forward. And if doing groups and moving forward means I'm going to do a group, or I'm going to speak on it, I'm going to go on YouTube and I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to use this as a platform to talk to other victims and other survivors, and find different ways and be a support system. So the support system I have is not physically here. The support system I have is out there, is you guys, is YouTube, is all the doctors and psychiatrists that I follow on YouTube, and connections that I'm making with people in that aspect. And that's my support system. My support system is me and my brain, and what's left, and fragments of my normal brain, and a healthy brain, I guess I should say, and a healthy heart. There's a whole lot to me. There's a whole lot to my story. This is just a chip of it, the tip of it. And I always hear noises, so I'm home by myself most of the time, and I hear noises. You guys know this. But anyway, you guys, the whole point to my video was I wanted to talk about the differences between post-traumatic stress disorder and complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and the difference in the traumas, and how PTSD is a 1-time, 2-time, 3-time, 4-time trauma. The complex post-traumatic stress disorder is extended period of time. So from age 3 or 4, sadly, I was abused physically until I was 23, in 23, when I was 23, was the last time my dad raised his hand to me, and I said, no, no more. You're not going to hit me. You know, I will call the cops, or you're in my house now. You can get the F out. And I started calling the shots. I thought I was calling the shots, but sadly, he still had control over my mind because he was still manipulating me until the day he died. I was his caregiver, caretaker to the day he died. He still worked. He lived on his own. None of the other family wanted anything to do with him, and I took care of him. Yes, I took care of my abuser. I'm not going to feel bad about it anymore. I'm going to just simply take it as, you know, I was probably the only positive, loving glimpse of God that he ever knew in his life. And if I made his life easier and I made him feel important, and he excluded and secluded himself by his behavior and by how he treated everybody, you know, there's Des, you know, going back for more, and still trying to seek the approval of my dad and my daddy. And I did it to the day he died, and that's okay. I forgave him. I'm left with the aftermath. The multiple relationships that I've had that were abusive, and or relationships that are currently abusive, I am on top of things. Yes, I have good days and bad days. I'm in a lot of pain today, and I just said, you know what, I'm going to shower, I'm going to do my makeup, and I'm going to do a video, and I'm going to be proactive, and I'm going to be productive, and I'm not going to just sit here and just let this pain get to me and let this pain take over. I can't do that. I just can't. You know, everybody says rest, you know, relax, you know, you don't have to do anything, but some days I will rest and some days I can relax, but most of the time I have a hard time relaxing because I worked for so long and I was active for so long that I feel like I'm doing something wrong. And I know that I'm not. I know it's all part of self-care. So anyway, you guys, that's the difference between PTSD and Cptsd. Those are the two differences. I am going to be talking more about it, more of the things that I've been through, some of the things that I've therapies that I've had, therapies that I've tried, self-therapy. Okay, self-help, reading, meditation. I've really been doing a lot of meditating. I try to meditate every day, at least minimum 10 minutes. My lighting might look different because I adjusted the lighting, so if it looks different, that's why. But I've been working on my chakras and clearing my chakras. I think I mentioned this before, I'm not sure, but that is part of my healing, is clearing my chakras. And just do a little bit of research on chakras, you guys. Like, if you're a Christian, like you're 110% Christian, by the Bible, you know, strictly, then you're not gonna, you know, want to, you know, talk about or look into, maybe you don't even want to hear about other healing methods. And I just think that God created this earth, God created the universe, and on this universe and on this earth, there's plants and there's stones and there's all these things that, you know, God, that we can utilize and use to our benefit. Like, so if there's, you know, these crystals, or there's these Himalayan salts, you know, stuff like this is all healing stuff. You know, these things are from God's earth, and these things they're beautiful. I mean, they're gorgeous. You know, they're all meant for good, and they're all part of God's earth. You know, all these things, all these crystals and stones and stuff, are all part of what God created. So whether you believe, you know, that all these things are idols, you know, I'm not sitting and getting on my knees and praying to these things. These are things that I utilize and that I incorporate with my prayer, with my meditation, with my quiet time. I carry them with me sometimes when I go places. This is all part of my self-help and things that I'm doing to heal me and to heal the, you know, post-traumatic stress, and to heal the damage and the hurts and the pains that, you know, I've gone through, things that I brought on myself also. Like, I've also put myself in bad situations. Like, there are some situations that it's a miracle that I survived, and I put myself in bad situations because of my poor judgment. But basically, so we all do the best that we can do, right? Like right now I'm doing what I think I'm supposed to be doing right now. Tomorrow I might look at it and say, or next week I might look at it and say, why'd you do that? Like, you should have did this that day, or you should have said this, or you should have did that. Like, we all are doing what we think we're supposed to be doing at the moment. Okay. And when I put myself in bad situations, I hope I'm not doing that anymore. I would like to think that I'm not. But when I was in my 20s, I could say honestly, and probably early 30s, maybe even, I don't know. I just know that in my 20s, I put myself in some really bad situations, poor judgment. But I thought that I was okay. I thought that it was right. I thought that I was safe. And I really could have died in a few of those situations that I actually got through. And it was just by the grace of God. I know that I survived those things and people and circumstances and, but I'm a warrior, and I'm all about, healing and self-help, and let's support each other. Let's be a support system for each other, and read, study, research things that you're feeling. If you're feeling a certain kind of way, or you've been abused, if you're watching this video, the majority of people who are watching videos that have to do with anxiety, PTSD, or any type of mental health, bipolar, because I was diagnosed as being bipolar, don't forget that. But then I was diagnosed with the severe complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Then they said borderline personality disorders. They all tie in together. Okay, it all ties in together. It's all in one big cluster. Fuck. All of it goes together. Yeah, you're gonna have some different personalities on some days, because some days you have triggers. Some days you feel okay. You feel aligned. You feel like, okay, it's not bad. I think I'm getting better. And then tomorrow you might have like a breakdown because somebody said something to you that triggered something to you from the past, or somebody said something to you exactly what traumatized you in a certain situation in the past. And then you're going through a post-traumatic stress, situation. And it all goes together. Being diagnosed as bipolar because my moods were up here, then I was down there. I was making this bad choice, that bad choice. They say when you have bipolar, you're shopping, you're spending money, you're talking fast, you're being promiscuous, you're using drugs, drug addiction, addictions, coffee addiction. Everything is an addiction. Everything is abnormal. Everything, I think people in general have made such a big deal out of everything. Like anything you do is, oh, yeah, you're bipolar. Oh, yeah, there's something wrong with you. And, oh, you're a drug addict. And I think, I'm not going to say that all mental health is the same. I'm not going to say that schizophrenia is the same as bipolar, or is the same as anxiety, or is the same as post-traumatic stress. I know there's different levels of mental health. I know that. I have family who has had mental illness. My brother committed suicide because he was depressed. I don't know the whole story about that because he died, and I really never got a chance to figure out what was wrong with him. A first cousin on my mom's side, she killed herself. That's a whole story in itself. I'm going to do a separate video on that because that was a very, very traumatic death. And I think I'm going to share a little bit of the suicide side of my life and story, because there was multiple suicides in my family. So I think I want to save that for a separate video and a separate mental health awareness video. So anyway, yeah, so that's, kind of what's been going on as far as my post-traumatic stress and my complex post-traumatic stress, and how I'm dealing with it, how I'm coping with it, and what I'm learning, what I'm researching. I'm always learning, and I'm going to continue learning. I know that, I'm on this healing journey for a reason. I'm here on YouTube for a reason, and I just think that the more I'm learning, I feel so blessed and so grateful. And I know there's so many different things going on with me all the time. I know. But I feel blessed and grateful because I woke up. Like, I'm awake and I'm realizing this and that and this and that, and I'm having all these epiphanies, and everything's kind of coming together and making sense. And I think with me and my research and the doctors and the psychiatrists and everybody that I'm interacting with, and maybe not physically interacting with, but you know, just interacting with and learning, and realizing that some of the things that I'm going through or I have gone through are normal for somebody that's been through what I've been through. I know that the timing of everything is happening for a reason. My camera shut off for whatever reason. I have this water app on my phone that goes off, and it tells me it's time to drink water, so that I remember to just like take a few sips of water throughout the day. I'm supposed to take in a certain amount of water. We all should, especially since we are all made of, like, the majority of our body is water. Like, it's really important to drink water. You could do your research about that because there's very good reasons for that. But anyway, the fear of trusting people, the fear of letting people in because we don't trust. And the first sign of distrust, or the first sign of something that's not safe for us, is when we want to flee. So we either freeze, fight, flight, or freeze. And it's always one of those things. But we want it to not be those things anymore. We want it to stop. Just for me, I have terminal aloneness. Not just for me, I guess I should say, we can't connect with people. We can connect to a point, but we can only connect so far and so much. We only let people in so far because, again, we can't trust, and it's hard to trust. So fear of connections, and it's like we're living in this glass bubble, right? And they're on the outside, and we're in a room full of people, so we should all be able to interact. But because we don't trust, and because we have that fear, we can see them, but we can't touch them. We can see them, but it's just a safety mechanism that we use to protect ourselves. And it's okay to protect yourself. You should always be watch out for yourself. You got to take care of you, because if you don't, who's going to? So that's going to be it for today's video, you guys. That's just a little bit on what I wanted to touch on. I just basically wanted to talk about the difference between post-traumatic stress and complex post-traumatic stress, and the differences between the two. And one is just extended period, and the other is just different traumas and different events. So there's more to be talked about and discussed. Please leave your questions, comments, and suggestions down below, and let's get this conversation going, you guys. Ask me questions. There's so much more. There's years and years of things, and I just want to say that to my mom, I love you. I don't ever want you to feel like you're the reason for anything. Okay, you were a victim, and I want you to be okay, and I want you to know that you did the best job that you can do, and I know that, and I love you, and I appreciate you, and all that you do, and all that you've done over the years, and it helped me with my kids and with my illnesses. And I just want to say thank you to those who are there for me and who support me. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe, give this video a like if you liked it, if you found it helpful, and leave me some suggestions for future videos. And yeah, with that being said, I'm going to end this video, and I'm going to go about my day, and we'll see what happens. So I'll see you guys soon. Bye.